Welcome back to Model Kit Stuff and the first part in our build of this brand new Werk kit, which is a 1/72 scale model of a World War I German U-boat. To my knowledge, the first plastic kit of a World War I German U-boat. In the comments, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I believe to be. So this has arrived today. I put it on back end of last year, so I've been really looking forward to this. The kit itself isn't overly complex. It's just over 80 centimetres long, so it's a reasonably nice size at that scale. I'm not going to do a box review of this because there are a few already out there. There was some pre-release stuff done, which you can find if you search on YouTube. I think there's also a build on there. I had to switch it off because it was full of bad language. No need for that, it really isn't. But it looks, from first look, to be a really nice kit. It's not overly complicated, and unlike the Scharnhorst, we're going to get stuck into building this one fairly straight away. So, I believe this is the first Werk's kit to do with ships or anything that goes on water. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in the future on this, but it's a really interesting subject. The box art is pretty special in its own right. The instructions, if you've built Werk kits before, are fairly typical. They are easy to follow. They shout out the paints for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different brands, so you've got plenty of paint options there. There's decals there for all the U-boats that were in this series, I think 9 through 12, 9 being the most famous one. And if you get a first issue of this kit, you'll also get this little book which talks about the background, the history, the technology, the crew, and also talks a bit about how they designed the kit, going down to one of the sunken wrecks and measuring it and scanning it and so on. Yeah, so I bought this out of my own money, so what we'll do is we'll review it as we build and you'll get an honest view of it. I'm not promoting it in any way. I've had a quick flick through the instructions, and what I can tell you is there's no photo etch involved. There are 2 options for the turret top. You can either have it with tarp on or tarp off. There is a couple of movable parts. They've supplied some of the turnbuckles for the rigging, but they haven't given you a rigging plan. In fact, that picture on the front is the only reference to rigging in the whole manual, which is somewhat disappointing because it's quite a simple amount of rigging. A 1-page photograph would have been enough to say, do your rigging here, but they haven't done that. So anyway, from what I can see, and I've not opened all the bags yet, it looks really nice. So let's cut some sprue. Okay, so we're kicking off with step 1 in the manual, which is actually quite a busy step. All right, show you that. Yeah, so we have a forward bulkhead which has torpedo tubes in, which can be modelled closed or open. We have a stern bulkhead which is assembled so that the lower and upper rudders can be assembled later on. We have a central support, and then we have all of these supports to be put in place and the base. So first thing I've done is build the base up, which went together well. This is going to be handy, give me somewhere to put the model while we're working on it. So that's that bit done. And it's difficult to get all this in shot because it is so big. But what we have done is, working from the stern, all of these have now been glued in place. Now these have been cut off the sprue. They've not been cleaned up in any way because they won't be seen, and actually the recesses that they go in are so deep that the nub on the end isn't causing an issue. And actually they were quite loose till you put a spot of glue on them. They're quite loose, and they will just click into place when we put the other half in, I hope. So I'll just take you down the full length. There we go. I haven't glued in the forward bulkhead, so you can see there I've modelled one open, one closed. I'm guessing they opened independently, but that's how I'm going to model it anyway. I just want to take a view on whether I want to paint that part separately before I glue it in. So when we dry fit the two halves together, we'll have a look at that and take a view. The other thing I want to take a view on is once the two halves are together, am I sticking that top deck in, or am I going to paint it first? So that's something else to have a look at. So I'm going to clean up the second half of this, and then we'll come back and dry fit it in a sec. Okay, so dry fitting has become sticking it together, so let me talk you through that. The instructions actually say glue the spreader bars to only one of the hull halves. So you do that, you glue the spreader bars in one side, and then you glue the central bit in and the rear bit in. I hadn't glued the front bit in, but we'll come back to that in a sec, the front bulkhead. And so then I thought, right, we'll just clip this together, see what the fit's like, because I wanted to have a look at the torpedo tubes and whether it was necessary to paint them first. It is such a fiddly job popping each individual spreader in place. I mean, there's a dozen or so of these things. I'm sure they could have come up with a better solution. It is difficult to get your hand in and align it, because as you're aligning that one, the one you previously aligned is popping out. So if I show you on the picture, they go into this hole. If you remember, I said they're quite loose. So what you're doing is you're holding at one end and popping it in, and then popping it in. And by the time you get to the middle, the front ones are starting to pop out again. So what I ended up doing was popping in the middle ones and clamping it here, so that I know was holding together, and then I had to work out and pop them in, and it took me quite some time, and for a while I thought I had a real fit issue, because I couldn't get the gap in the bottom of the hull narrower than 5mm at one point, and I couldn't obviously see what was wrong. So when I finally got the two halves together, I decided I'm gonna glue them together. Now luckily you can get in very easily there with well, you could get in with a paintbrush, to say nothing of an airbrush, so I'm not concerned about the torpedo tubes. So I've subsequently run some liquid poly around that bulkhead. I've put the bow doesn't want to go together particularly well at all, and still doesn't. You know, there's movement in that. It's together here, and it's together at the bottom, and I've put some thicker glue on there, and as you can see, I've got some rubber pegs clamping it together. But when you look down into this bit here, there is a gap that I can't close, and that gap is right above the torpedo tubes. So we're painting this quite a dark grey, almost a black, a sort of an anthracite type colour. So I'm hoping it won't be very visible, but I would suggest if you come to build this, that maybe you put the torpedo covers on after you've put the bulkhead in, which would allow you to possibly get a little bit of filler in there and sand it down. Too late for me now. Yeah, I might see if I can take the open one off, put some more liquid poly on and get it wet, and pull it off with a with my tweezers just so I can get in. I might, and I might not, I don't know yet. Anyway, the fit overall is really quite good. Putting aside the bow, I mean it's just clamped together, it's nothing significant. The same with the stern, it's gone together okay. That's just to help it stay tight. Underneath, there is a little bit of careful sanding needed to be done. At the bow end it's not so bad. You can sand that quite easily, and that's probably where the most of the sanding needs to be. It's where it's misaligned the worst. But here, ever so slightly, you've got a lip, and you've also got quite a lot of rivet detail. So that's going to be an interesting task to work through. You're going to have to do it one strip of panels at a time. So that will be quite time consuming. So that actually completes step one. I'm going to do these videos a step at a time, is sort of my thought process. What we're going to do in the second video is have a look at what we need to do to fit this top deck. And in the instructions, you're fitting the deck, and then there's two bits here that clip on top, and they sort of roll over the top of the deck, if you like. So if we were going to paint this before we fit the deck, we're going to have to paint those parts separately as well. Let me just show you the instructions. Yeah, so here we go. On the instructions you can see the deck's going in, and then these two parts clipping over the top. So if the deck fits okay, we will look to paint that separately, which would be a lot easier because the top surfaces are dark and the rest are the paler grey. So there's some masking to do on these, but it would save having to mask this lot off, these side bits, because we could just mask the whole thing and paint it. So in the next video we will look at that, and we will also look at step 2, which is the construction of the chimney. And I have a concern with the painting instructions around that part, but we'll discuss that in the next video. Okay, so that's it for part 1. I hope you've enjoyed it. Okay everybody, we will see you next time.